So, again, look, there's a number of ways I think in which people can do sales, I guess. So this is one of millions of ways of which anyone can go about doing this job. I guess I've been doing this specific role now for about 11 years, so I can talk with a level of authority, I guess, in what does work and what doesn't work. But again, like Laura, I'm always open to anybody's ideas and always open to understanding what I can change or amend to be better, as I think probably we all are. So again, I'll go through a little bit of my story. I'll go through about creating a sales strategy, and we can discuss that as well. So I want to sort of be interactive. Hints and tips, and then basically some books I've read, really, which is always good. I like hearing about what other people's books, what other people have read. That always helps as well. But again, this is really just about going. I'm telling you the story about how I go about doing it. And again, it's not the right or the wrong way. It just works for me. So hopefully you can get something from it today. So I am from Brisbane in Australia, which is just off the coast of Queensland. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I can absolutely encourage you to go there. If you ever go to Australia, make sure you do go to Brisbane, Queensland. And just off the coast there, you can see near the area, there are little islands actually. And they're beautiful. They're like paradise. So yeah, if you're ever down that neck of the woods, definitely check that place out. So a bit about my experience and my story. I've worked with over 200 businesses across their Microsoft Cloud journeys in Australia, UK, and the USA. 11 years and done over 100 million in software services and sales. So through that time, I've sort of learned quite a lot of what not to do as well as what to do. And what can work specifically as a Microsoft seller. I've worked across loads of different industries, a lot of the whole Microsoft stack, so not just one specific area, but the whole lot. I was fortunate enough to be invited to attend the Microsoft Azure Partner Advisory Council as well. So that was really, really cool. It was like with the CIO of Accenture and some. I sort of felt quite overwhelmed being there, to be honest with you, but it was a really, really good experience and quite fortunate. I've been fortunate enough to work with 3 Partner of the Year teams as well across Australia and the UK, which has been great. So I feel very, very fortunate. And I currently work with New Signature based in London. And again, we were fortunate enough to win the Partner of the Year last year. So I've been really fortunate enough to be working with some successful teams, and everything I share with you today generally hasn't really been something I've come up with. It's always been stuff that I've learned or borrowed from other people and look to try to apply that within what I do. So again, I've been really fortunate to learn a lot from some great mentors. So I thought potentially what I could do is sales strategy development. I'm sure we've all got a lot of this stuff in our head anyway, but just to break it down into into the way that I see it. So having a set of clear goals, clearly understanding what you're going to sell to your customers, how you're going to sell them, what the messaging that you want to put into market is, what your priorities, and obviously who am I going to sell to. So they're sort of really important things to think about. There's a lot of other things to think about, but I could probably spend a week going through this. So starting off with a set of clear goals, I guess. Having a 30, 60, 90-day plan. Now, we might have a business, but obviously it's very important as in sales to sort of have that. So I went back 5 years ago and looked at my 30, 60, 90-day plan. And these are my goals. I think I hit some of them. But again, if I didn't have them sort of down pat, then I wouldn't have. There's nothing wrong with just trying. But obviously, if you can create those small goals and then hit them, it's really going to give you some confidence. And some of these things are internal things as well as external things. But again, the idea is, I really want to make it clear that I want to get those deals closed. And I want to basically make sure that I can look at the amounts or who I'm dealing with, etc. But that 30, 60, 90-day plan is super, super important. And, sometimes it's good even halfway through the year to do this again, right? So it's not just a thing when you start, but it's obviously good to just keep rehashing. I guess the other one is mapping out your 20 ideal customers. So for me, it's mapping those out, reaching out to them, get to know them, and then obviously looking to try to do business with 5 of my ideal 20 customers. Now that you may not be able to get there initially, but again, it's really about trying to make sure that you can map those out, and they're going to be dealing with somebody anyway, so they might as well deal with you. There's no reason they should be dealing with anyone else. So write them down and have those as goals. Obviously, what we're going to sell to them, as a Microsoft partner, we're pretty straightforward. We sell consulting, software, hardware, and we also sell managing professional services. That's basically what we do, and we're very clear about what we can offer. How we're going to sell to them. So there's lots of different avenues to selling. Obviously, there's cold calling, direct sales. There's lots of different things. But obviously, we need to look at what our lead streams are. So where are the leads coming from, and where am I going to get them from? Because sometimes we think it's just direct, but it's generally not the case, especially not being a Microsoft seller. So here, if you look at where my leads come from, so my leads come from direct. That's generally through either LinkedIn, partner. Now, if they're through a partner, they could be through a licensed reseller, they could be through another business, they could be through an architecture company, they could be from wherever. Generally, if that partner is giving me a lead, I'm going to have to lose some percentage of margin on the deal. And that's just something I'm going to have to look at. That can be, I guess, a passive lead stream because I'm not having to work it too much. And that partner, like be it a reseller, or another company, could create a new revenue stream in their business by giving me leads, right? So I might give them 10 or 15%, whatever that may be, okay? We've got customer referral, which is the best one that you can get. Okay, I think that shows that you've done a great job with that customer, but also they're free. They don't cost anything either, which is great. And you can start building your network that way. And then, obviously, being a Microsoft person, you've got Microsoft as your lead, where leads come from, and that's where I generate a lot of my leads from. And it's important to understand who at Microsoft can give you leads. So if you're going to be a Microsoft salesperson, you want to, as a partner, and you want to get into understanding the business, there's a number of teams that sit within that team. Earlier this week, we covered the partner development team, which enable partners. But I want to speak to people that can give me customers, right? So if I'm not speaking to customers, I want to be speaking to people that will give me customers. So within the enterprise team, for one customer, there's at least 6 or 7 people that knows that customer that can introduce me. So in the AT or the account team unit, you've got the account executive and the account technical strategist. In the specialist team unit, you've got modern workplace specialist, Azure app specialist, data and AI specialist, a devices specialist. And the customer success unit, you've got a customer success manager and a cloud solution architect. So there's all these people that are speaking to my customer, or who I want to be my customer. I need to be relevant towards them or to them, okay? So your enterprise accounts, obviously the larger accounts in the ecosystem today. There's also the SMC team. So this is another set of Microsoft, another team within Microsoft that sit just below enterprise. So you've still got some larger accounts there, but generally they're on the smaller end. Again, you've got an account executive there, a modern workplace specialist, an Azure app specialist, apps and infra, and data and AI devices. So again, you've got another 6 people there that can introduce you to the customer, okay? And then also you've got the SMB team, you've got territory managers. So outside of direct, outside of partner, and outside of customer referral, there's lots of people at Microsoft that can introduce you to customers that you want to speak to. So keep that in mind, and their success is your success. So getting a partner in there that's going to work well is fundamental for their success. So we covered that. We obviously covered securing and leveraging those lead streams, and how and to touch on back to how we're going to sell to them. Obviously, we discussed online or in person, leading with references or an offering. This is a super important one. So we discussed this earlier in the week, but if I'm trying to get in contact with someone at Microsoft, well, I'd have to lead with something, right? So traditionally, I will lead with a case study. So here's a case study that we did with TalkTalk. We created success. We moved them to Microsoft 365 in a week. They've got their own challenges. So when I'm talking to Microsoft, I'm literally leading with this. This is my product to sell. This is what I'm leading with. That I'm saying, hey, we've done this for TalkTalk. Would you like me to help you with your customers? This is a great news story for Microsoft, for TalkTalk. We've been able to enable them to be more, collaborative, reduce service desk calls, etc. I'd like to have a chat about how we can help your customer hit their goals as well. So again, I think that's really, really important. Just going back again. So with this, I think in starting out as well, sometimes it's hard to get case studies. Because you may not have been able to create a lot of success, and you might be new in it. My advice would be to potentially look at doing a freemium model with your customers. So say you'll do some work and complete something, pro bono, or you will get it. You will as opposed to taking money, you'll do a publicly referenceable case study. That's a great way to get started, to show what the value is, and you've got a product to then sell, right? So, get creative in relation to how you're going to market yourself. But the best way of being able to show that you're capable of doing something and making customers happy is by doing it and then shouting about it. Okay, and that's the best way to really get other customers on board, and obviously to get Microsoft on board too. So outside of that, sales and marketing, what's your USP? I'm sure that you've got, you're up against lots of challenges when it's coming to understanding why should a customer deal with you for the Office 365 or collab needs. So understand why you're different. If you're going to be small, shout about being small, saying I'm more agile, I'm more responsive, I can do this. So make sure you can obviously get that down pat. You've got your messaging and doesn't meet the customer need. So saying I'd sell Microsoft licenses isn't a customer need. I'm really responsive and I'll make sure that I can save you money. Is meeting the customer need because I want to save money, obviously, and call me today, okay? So, or make a call today, whatever it may be, encouraging actions, obviously, encourage action within your messaging too. So again, I think this is pretty much 101 stuff, but I mean, people can spend a lot of time thinking about messaging to the market and everything. I think it can be relevant, but, understand why you exist, and understand how, where that need and what you offer the customer really meets. Another one too is focusing on A activities. From a sales point of view, there's so much stuff that you can be doing. You can be trying to fight fires. You can be, you can do lots of admin, and you can feel that you're being really productive. And I'm sure you can be. But if you want to generate pipeline and you want to actually be effective in your role, you've got to know what an A activity is and a B activity. So for me, A activities are speaking to customers or speaking to someone who can introduce me to a customer. That's it. There's only 2A activities. There's nothing more. B activities can be planning, etc., which is great, and that stuff has to happen. But where the rubber meets the road, and the most effective way of me being able to reach those customers is by spending time with them, or by spending time with people that can introduce me to them. Okay. So for me, an A activity is those two things, and I should make sure I could spend at least 50% of my day on doing that. And that can be existing customers as well. But in saying that's my job, right? My business wants me out there doing that. I want to be out there doing that. And I've found there's a direct correlation between how successful I am in sales and the amount of time I spend with people who can introduce me to a customer, or the time I spend with a customer. There's a direct correlation between that. And for me, that's super important to think about. Again, making time for sales every day, as we discussed, to make time for networking every day. Your week is going to be large, and I wouldn't say I'm an organizational king. I'm not. I need to really make sure I remind myself to compartmentalize my week. But every day, you need to be making time for this stuff. Every day. So set some time aside. It can be the morning, earlier in the morning. Traditionally, earlier in the morning is a little bit better, because after lunch, people are, traditionally a bit more tired and a bit more relaxed and thinking about what they're going to do tonight. So hit them early, win the morning, win the day, and all that sort of stuff. Again, who am I going to sell to? It's important to describe your ideal customer. So what does that ideal customer look like? For me, it's about, 2,000 seats, turns over, close to $1 billion or more. Has had a change in leadership recently, is in an industry that needs to be a bit disrupted. There's lots of competition. They've had a major security alert. There's been a compelling event that's happened. So I can know pretty quickly if there's been a change in leadership and there's been a compelling event, or a contract's up for renewal. Those things for me, I know that that's an ideal customer for me that would have a propensity to buy more so than other ones. Okay, and have a think about what challenges they'll be going through, obviously, but I know the customers that I need to sell to, and you can, as many people would know, but once you've been doing what you've been doing for a while, you can sort of pick up those triggers and those specific things, and your ears pick up, and you can go, right, okay, I think that customer's right for us. So that's just a bit about, I guess, from a sales strategy perspective, the way that I think about it. And again, I think it's I never want to be in a situation where you're telling someone how to sell or how to think about how to grow their business specifically, but there's some of the things that I've thought about when I'm doing my job and starting out every day. So here's some hints and tips from me in what I do. Qualifying my perfect customer. So sometimes we don't think about these things. But again, for me, it's really important that I'm getting all of this detail down straight away. So for me, I'm looking, is there a compelling reason? Timelines. Does the customer have any timelines in place? Are there any contract dates? The customer's not necessarily going to move if they've got an existing contract for the next 2 years. So whilst they might have all of the be my ideal customer, that doesn't fit, right? So again, I've got to make sure I've got this down. I've got this down all the time. And again, those contract dates, if it doesn't fit, then I'll put that into diary for, again, another year or 18 months. But again, if I can get all this detail down, then it helps me qualify the customer and capture and get a better understanding of them. And again, it's a bit of a discipline, but it really, really helps. I think in recruitment, obviously, when you're going through interviewing candidate sheet, you can do that pretty quick. You can do that. But again, I guess in sort of consulting, sometimes we don't go through this process all the time. But again, this is something that we look to try to do all the time, which is qualifying the customer and actually writing down what it is that why they qualify and why you should be talking to them. Some questions to ask as well. I'll send this to you, but some of these questions are really, really good questions to ask. And I think the questions that you ask can raise the value of you as a consultant, but also get you the answers that you need. So oftentimes people have been burnt, for example, they bought the wrong thing, they made the wrong decision, project went really badly. So, there might be, a question to ask might be, what has stopped your organization from resolving this problem before? And they might say, well, this happened and this person did this and da-da-da. And you can say, okay, well, through that process, what does bad look like? Let's just go through that to make sure that, we don't go through that process again. And they can start to tell you what they want, and again, some of these questions I've derived from different books over the time. But again, I think, the line of questioning can really, really help. And, I think you've got to earn the right to ask some of these questions as well. But again, I think everyone's got some great questions. These are the ones that I traditionally ask. And again, in trying to create a close plan for with your customers as well, is an example is within each step and what decisions are made in your decision-making process, who's involved in making them, when will those decisions happen, what criteria do you use to make the decision. So you're getting down to the minutiae of each thing, right? And sometimes the customers don't know themselves, so you're sort of driving them and sort of coaching them in relation to the thought process as to what they need to go through. That can help you obviously for pipeline. That can help you understand who's involved, and obviously you may not be talking to them at the moment. It might be, well, I need to speak to Joe, who's a resident expert with projects that you've never heard of before. Suddenly Joe's now part of your, decision-making criteria. So, chat with Joe. But in saying that, here's just some questions that, and I'll make sure these can get out, but I'll watch them again. But I think they're quite good, and they've helped me close a number of deals. I'm all about the follow-up. So fortune is in the follow-up. Today is so many times where you speak to somebody and you go, great conversation, don't follow up for 3 days, or don't follow up effectively, or don't follow up for a week. And that's, you've just wasted your time, So I find that, the fortune really is in the follow-up. So, when you do speak to a potential client, or customer, get back to them straight away. If it's been a phone call, get back to them an email. Thanks so much for your time. Just to confirm, these are some of the things that I really enjoyed our discussion. These are some of the things that we discussed. If you've got
James, sorry. So email's okay for a follow-up with a client, like if you've initially contacted them with a like a phone call or an in-person meeting. Email's okay.
Traditionally, obviously you need to ask permission to get their email address, but for sure, yeah. What I'll be doing is paraphrasing what I'll be writing. I've got a specific template. It's like discussion points, supporting content, agreed next steps. Thank you. So what I'm doing, I'm just reaffirming that it's all about trust, right? So the customer needs to understand that I understand them. The best way I can do that is by repeating back to them what they've told me. That's it, right? And then the trust train that starts building up is doing something you say you're going to do, right? So if you tell me, I've got this business, I'm trying to do this, this is not working for me very well, this is working for me very well, I'd say, Ivor, thanks so much for talking. with me today. You mentioned that this is a bit of a challenge for you. You've mentioned that this is an opportunity for you. I understand that. I've got some supporting content here as promised that I'll send to you. We did agree on the call that we're going to have a conversation on the 27th of May on that Saturday afternoon. So what I've done, I've just put that in here as a next step just to make sure we're all okay with that. So what I'm doing, I'm just reaffirming that you understand what I've said. I'm keeping a promise because I'm sending you the content that I said I was going to do. And I'm inputting in your mind that you've made a commitment to me to follow to, that we've got another next step, which is another call, right? These things sound simple, but no one does them. And if you can do them, it's really easy to, especially when you're trying to get new customers on board. The people buy off people they know or they trust, right? But if I've just met you before, you don't know me and you don't trust me. So how do I quickly get from you just met me right through to you know me and you trust me? One is different forms of contact, and the other one is doing what I say I'm going to do. So it's really easy. I can set my success up by telling you what I'm going to do and then just do it. And again, for me anyway, it does sound pretty simple, and I'm sure I wouldn't say I'm 100% perfect at this, but I know when I do it, things happen. So that's just my one of my hints and tips. Persistence beats resistance. I think this is a really, really important one, especially when you're starting out. People may forget you. You might just be another vendor to them at some point, but they know you very, very quickly if you're persistent, right? And I think the thing is, I remember, years ago in recruitment, the first call I made was, "Hi, how you doing?" She said, "Look, don't speak to recruiters." About 6 calls later, she's like, "Oh, hi, James, how are you?" I was, and long story short, we did business the next month, right? But the point is, if I hadn't called her every month at the same time, every single month, then, we wouldn't have got anywhere. So again, don't think, if the customer doesn't want you to call them again, they will ask you not to call again. There's a difference with being, bombarding and harassment versus persistence. But again, I think that's a really, really important point. The persistence does beat resistance, and especially when you're starting out and you are trying to get ahead, and especially in markets like this, right? You've got to change what you're doing in order to be successful. When the wind changes, you've got to, your sales have to change, right? And yeah, I really think this is very pertinent now, more so than ever. The other one too is energy as well. So again, this is the energy equals MC squared. I don't know if hopefully I can relate this to what we do, but energy equals mass, right? So your energy can create results, right? And there's a big difference with people that are passive. And again, you've got to, craft your energy to make sure it's applicable for the customer you're dealing with, and obviously the status of whatever you're doing with that customer. But someone with energy, people want to be led, right? So if I come in and I've got a lot of energy, I'm very certain, I'm very confident, I'll look you in the eye, and I've got more energy, then effectively, people want that. People want energy, right? They're like, shit, that person makes me feel more energetic, or makes me feel alive, or I feel confident when I'm around that person, right? When you're trying to attract new customers, they're looking for that. And if you can bring that energy and that certainty, then, you're going to be able to attract customers where potentially other people haven't. Don't be scared to bring that energy, because, that can be the difference. Customers sometimes are like going, well, who do I buy from? This person or this person, and they start to really go down to, a small level of detail, and someone who has that energy and that positive energy can really, really help. So, there's just a couple of things that I think that maybe I do that definitely help me. A couple of books I've read. This is just a couple. Start With Why. I'm sure a lot of people have heard Simon Sinek's talk. This is a really, really good book I've found. Again, starting with the why. It's all about looking at the customer, obviously, and looking within yourself too. But again, it's starting with the customer in mind and the person that you're dealing with. So that's a really, really good book. This is another one called The Jelly Effect. So this is all about helping to create what the experience is going to be with you before the customer's bought it, right? So the customer's always trying to establish in their mind, what's my experience going to be like after I sign on that pen and paper, right? So walking them through that and creating that vision for the customer and saying, once you are a customer, this is sort of the way that things will work with us. And now what they're doing, they're starting to have an imagination of how they deal with you and what it's going to be like, right? So my hesitancy in saying no, 70% of the reason people say no is because they don't know what's going to happen or they don't know, right? So I want to make you as certain as possible, and I want you to know how good it's going to be is after you sign on that dotted line, and how you are dealt with when you're with me or with my company. And the best way I can do about doing that is describing it to them. Okay, so this book is really, really good in relation to going into that depth. And again, bit of a different book, but really, really effective. And couldn't recommend it highly enough. And this is another book, which is a really good book. There's a foreword by Stephen Covey, but it's called Let's Get Real, Let's Not Play. It's based on quite a lot of research that consulting companies have done. And again, it's just on this basis of trying to transform the buyer-seller relationship, where the seller always wants as much as they can get, and the customer is trying to make sure they don't get ripped off as much as possible, right? And this is the constant trade-off. What's your budget? Well, I'm going to tell you what that is, right? And that's kind of that stance a lot of the time, which cannot be conducive to getting the best outcome for the customer or for you as a seller. So this book really goes through standard ways of behavior, questions to ask, and different approaches you could take from people in software sales, right? So they've gone and interviewed over, I think it was over 10 years or something like that, software and consulting sales, big deals that have been lost, have won, and all that sort of stuff. So really, really insightful book, but couldn't recommend it enough. I find it really hard to read visually all the time. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So yeah, I've had this on. I've gone back and listened to it over 10 years. As at different times, it's good to listen to it. So there's just a couple of books I've read. And again, so today I guess we've covered a bit about my story, my view on creating a sales strategy, and going over setting clear goals, what we're going to sell to them, how we're going to sell to them, the sales and marketing messaging, priorities, and who I'm going to sell to, and some of my hints and tips, and then books I've read. I thought now would be probably a good time for a bit of an open discussion, really.